So I've been noticing these two general trends, these two groups of people. Group 1 is socialized as a girl. Around their teenage years, they start feeling discomfort with their gender. They find these YouTubers who share those feelings, who are talking about being trans and or non-binary, which feels super validating, and they go from there. Group 2 is socialized as a boy. Around their teenage years, they start noticing these people saying that they no longer identify as female, and now they're saying that they're trans and non-binary, and they find these YouTubers who think those people are just ridiculous, which feels super validating for them, and they go from there. However, contrary to popular belief, there are actually a ton of people who don't fall into either of these groups, including myself, which is why I decided to make this video.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm basically a straight guy, and I'm here to make the case that examining your gender is worthwhile, even if you feel pretty okay with it already, like me. It can help you understand other people, but more importantly, it can help you understand yourself and help you communicate to other people who you are.
Hi there, I shot this footage 4 months before editing, so this is me 4 months later, and I'll be chiming in to amend or update things. Okay, carry on.
Okay, so you might be wondering, what's the difference between these newer definitions of gender and, personality? And that's a good question, because there's not actually a lot of a distinction there. Imagine you're some random guy, right? And then maybe you change your hairstyle because you like it better that way. And then maybe you wear different clothes sometimes because you like those clothes. And then maybe you feel like you want to shave your legs and tuck so you look better in those clothes. And then you realize you have long hair, you're wearing a dress, strangers on the street are assuming you're a woman and you're enjoying that. But you didn't really set out to transition. Maybe you just wanted to express yourself. See, there's no real line between personality expression and gender expression, and it all kind of gets mixed together, and even looking back, it can be hard to be like, well, what did I do because of my gender, and what did I do because of my personality? It's all very confusing, and so when I say exploring your gender, you if you want, you can just take that as, exploring your personality, and figuring out how you want to express yourself. There's nothing wrong with that, that's great. What I'm trying to say is, maybe, like me, you just feel like a dude, and that's great, and you can still explore and experiment with your personality, your expression, and your gender, and you don't really need permission from anyone else to do that. So if anyone tries to tell you that you can do that, then just, don't listen to them because they're wrong.
Footnote, this goes the other way too, meaning you don't have to self-identify as anything you don't want to. No one gets to decide who or what you are because they think you meet the definition of a label.
Okay, let's talk about labels. I am so excited to talk about labels because labels are awesome. The best part about labels, and I swear I'm not being sarcastic here, is that you can make them up. Hear me out. This doesn't mean that walking to a job interview like, hi, I'm Ben, I'm bi-gender demiflux is a good idea because they're probably going to be like, you're what? But you can use a label to explain to a friend, or maybe just someone who wants to know more about you, your personality, your gender, how you like to express yourself, and how you want them to perceive you. Of course, you can also use a label in a jaded and sarcastic way that shits on a group of people that you dislike, but all that really teaches people about you is that you hate them so much that you're willing to identify yourself in relation to them. See, that's the thing about self-identifying, is that it's a really powerful tool, and you can use it however you like, and no one can stop you. But the best way to use it is to help people understand you, and who you are. And yes, it is a little ironic that non-binary people are pushing back against categorization by putting themselves in a new category, but if you think about it, that's the only way that you can really convince at least some people to take you seriously, and to stop sort of assuming things about you that aren't actually true. Identifying as a label and then explaining that label to someone else is just a really great tool for people to understand who you are. And so I encourage you to embrace the weird, scary world of gender self-identification, which is what I'm gonna do right now. This is a gender tag video. I'm doing a gender tag. Let's do the gender tag.
Question 1. How do you self-identify your gender, and what does that definition mean to you?
So I don't really typically think about my gender very much, and I've never really had any strong feelings about it, so when people were like, you're a boy, I was like, sure, and that was basically how I saw it for a long time. But I did notice some things that made me start examining that label, and I realized that cisgender man, well, it doesn't really feel wrong, but it also doesn't really feel right. If you were to describe a tomato as a fruit, you're not wrong, but it kind of depends on what you mean by fruit, and it kind of depends on the context, and you get the idea, right? There's this one thought experiment that was if If you could go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow in basically the same body, except you had 100% female sex characteristics, would you do it? How much would someone have to pay you to do it? For a lot of guys, I imagine the answer would be, maybe if you paid me like a lot of money, and I definitely have to think about it first though. But for me, assuming everyone in my life treated this as a completely normal development instead of freaking out, you probably wouldn't have to pay me very much. And if I could get it switched back on like a month's notice, I'd probably do it for free. I'd probably be on my way to Goodwill right now to buy clothes. So anyway, I found myself digging through these lists of these non-binary identities to see if any of them felt like they fit. And well, some of them were kind of close, but none of them really felt exactly right. So I made up a word! Because that's a thing you can do. As of right now, and this could very easily change, I identify as apagender flux. What this means to me is that 80% of the time, I, just really don't care, and I don't even feel the need to, look into it, right? Gender's just not really relevant. But then, I do have these fluctuations where I feel like I want to express my gender in ways that often don't match my assigned gender of male. Okay, so I want to be clear here. This is not a word I expect anyone to memorize or even to know what it means without me telling you. But consider, apa sounds like apathy, and flux means flowing or changing, right? So if you were to guess at a definition for apagender flux, you'd probably be pretty close. And that's kind of how language works. It's a word that I made up that hopefully means what it sounds like it means, so I can easily refer to something that there's not already a word for. So, ta-da! I also feel like non-binary or NB fits me pretty well, and that's a term that more people are familiar with. But as of right now, I don't think I want to identify as trans or queer or genderqueer just because I don't want to co-opt the struggles that the people who claim those identities face. Like I said, I'm pretty okay with people treating me as a cis guy most of the time in general, and insofar as I am a dude, I'm pretty straight. So, cis guy is sure, fine, whatever. Non-binary is great, and apagender flux is, super precise. So yeah, that's where I am, at least for now.
Yeah, Willow the kitty. Who's the kitty? Who's the kitty? Who's the kitty?
Okay.
Question 2. What pronouns honor you?
So I've never really thought much about pronouns in my life either. No one's ever used anything other than he, him to refer to me, and I've never really had a problem with that. But when I actually sat down to, think about it, and I was like, how would I feel if someone used they, them, or she, her pronouns with me? It was kind of exciting. I actually got excited about the idea of being referred to by different pronouns. It didn't feel weird. So I went and found this pronoun dressing room where you can, basically enter your name and some pronouns, and then it spits out, a story about you, with those pronouns. And, well, basically, what feels good varies. That might sound weird, but here we are. Generally, they, them typically feels best, and sometimes he, him feels a little weird, but, I don't have super strong feelings about any of the pronouns. So, for now, anyway, any pronouns are fine, all the pronouns are fine, use whatever is most comfortable, I'll be fine. If you want to practice singular they, them pronouns on me, that's great, go for it. I think more people using they, them for a single person in general is a good thing. And I think if people ask me specifically about my pronouns in the future, I'll probably give them they, them.
Update. I've been telling people that my preferred pronouns are they, them, and I've been using the analogy of pizza. He, him is like a frozen pepperoni pizza, while they, them is like a really nice extra large pizza with all my favorite toppings delivered right to my door. I like all kinds of pizza, but one of those is clearly better. Question 3. Describe the style of clothing that you most often wear.
So growing up, I was never really given options for clothing. Everyone just basically steered me into the boys section and was like, here are your clothes, which was fine. But I do have memories of playing dress up with my sister when I was little and enjoying wearing these clothes that were, for girls. But then in middle school, I was this socially awkward, nerdy, flimsy little kid who got good grades, so I often, dealt with the bullying and teasing, and so I sort of dealt with it by, like, retreating into the background as much as possible, which basically meant I wore, like, really baggy sweatshirts and jeans and just the most nondescript clothing you can imagine. And I basically just kept doing that through high school and college, except there were a couple times when I actually picked out a piece of clothing because I actually really liked it. Like this one time I was in this clothing store and I saw this table of these bright solid color polo shirts and it was like a magnet. I was like, I want these! And I bought like 5 and I still have all of them. I'm wearing one right now. Another time I found this like blue and purple hat from the women's section and I loved it and clearly I still have it and I still wear it. Honestly, I think I actually like tighter clothes, despite years of wearing those super baggy sweatshirts. And I really, really like bright, solid colors, which, as you can imagine, means that I could probably find a lot more clothes in the women's section that I liked. But I've just been afraid to shop there and to wear those clothes, so I never have. And the real proof of this is that after moving in with my girlfriend, I've been wearing her clothes. The first time I woke up and I was like, I feel an urge to put on her clothes. I thought, like, is this some kind of sexual thing? But it really wasn't. It was just, like, I liked, like, cooking and reading and scrolling through Twitter in those clothes, like, to just be in them and move around in them. They just felt like me. That was really my first big clue that it might be a good idea for me to start examining my gender. Probably gonna do some thrifting soon to start, figuring out what I actually want to wear.
Isn't that right, Willow? Yeah. You're gonna figure out what I actually want to wear, yeah.
Update. I actually went and bought a bunch of bright colored clothes from the women's section at Goodwill, including some jeans that actually fit me for the first time in my life, and I love all my new clothes. They're great. Question 4. Talk about your choices with body hair. How do you style your hair? Do you have facial hair? What do you choose to shave or choose not to shave?
Alright, let's talk about haircuts. So when I was little, my dad gave me the standard 1950s boy haircut and taught me how to comb it, and I just sort of went with it, and then around, middle school, I basically stopped combing it because I was like, what's the point? But I've never actually changed the actual haircut. I generally just, let it grow until it starts getting in my eyes, and then I go to a cheap haircut place, and I'm like, make it shorter, please? But, as an adult, I've been procrastinating getting haircuts, more and more. I mean, you can probably tell that I haven't had a haircut in a while. I'm just procrastinating it. And I did some reflection on this, and I think that, part of it is, social anxiety of, going to the haircut place and, getting the haircut, but, I also realized something, which is, I don't really like my hair after I get a haircut. I don't generally think about my appearance, at all. One time I took this art class, and we were supposed to do a self-portrait, and I realized that I hadn't actually looked at my face, in a mirror, in months. And when I said that, everyone else in the class was like, you what? and I realized that that's not a normal thing. But generally, I just don't really care about my face, except, in the 2 to 3 week period right after I get a haircut. Which is probably normal to some extent, but it's not even how it feels on my head. It's if I catch my reflection in a mirror, or I see a photo or a video of myself, I'm like, what is that? What are you doing? What is this? That doesn't look right, So, yeah, I'm thinking about getting a more androgynous haircut. I just have to decide how much I actually want to spend on it, because I'm really poor. Alright, anyway, facial hair. So, I don't really care unless it gets to, it's more than, an 1/8 inch, and then it starts to just feel so I shave it, and it's every few days. I don't really keep track. But for the rest of my body, I don't shave anything. I never really have, and I don't really feel like I want to, so there's that.
Question 5. Talk about cosmetics. Do you choose to wear makeup? Do you paint your nails? What types of soaps and perfumes do you use, if any?
So, I don't wear makeup. For someone designated male, there's kind of a lot of stigma around it, and generally no one's gonna, introduce you to it. Or at least, no one in my life did. But honestly, I don't think I would like it. Stuff on my face that makes me look different. Like, it just doesn't appeal to me. I have gotten my nails painted on occasion, and I didn't really mind it, but, like, it wasn't, like, I didn't really feel like maintaining it. Like, it's one of those things where I'm not into it just because it takes time and effort, and why? As for soaps and perfumes, I basically use the cheapest soap, shampoo, deodorant that I can possibly find, and I don't really have much of a sense of smell, actually, so it's not really something I think much about.
Question 6. Have you experienced being misgendered? If so, how often?
So, the times that I've been referred to as something other than he, him, sir, are not common. But when it did happen, it didn't feel weird. Like, recently a server at a restaurant ma'amed me, probably because of my haircut procrastination, and, like, it didn't really feel wrong. Like, there were times in middle school when people would say, like, "You're such a girl," to insult me, and it was always, like, kind of bewildering. I was like, is that supposed to be painful? Like, am I supposed to not want to be a girl? So basically, I'm not sure it is possible to really misgender me, unless you refer to me like an it. Yeah, don't do that.
Question 7. Do you experience dysphoria? How does that affect you?
I don't think so. Like, it's possible the apathy I have toward my appearance is driven by not liking my appearance, but it's kind of hard to tell. So the only thing I'd say might count is, you know, the aforementioned haircut thing. Like the 3 to 4 weeks right after I get a haircut, it just feels super weird. But I honestly, I don't know if that counts either. I definitely don't experience dysphoria on the level that I know a lot of people do. So, you know.
Question 8. Talk about children. Are you interested in having children? Would you want to carry a child if that were an option for you? Do you want to be the primary caretaker for any children you may have?
I don't really know. Probably wouldn't want to raise a child alone, and I definitely wouldn't want to carry a child, but I'd be totally open to raising a child if it wasn't just me committing to it. It would probably be amazing and terrible at the same time, judging from what I've heard. As for the adoption versus biology question, I definitely have a hard limit of 2 biological children, but then I don't really have any strong feelings on, like, a minimum or maximum of adopted children. And I don't really have any strong feelings about one or the other.
Question 9. Talk about money. Is it important for you to provide for a family financially if you choose to have one? Is it important to you that you earn more money than any partner you may have? Do you prefer to pay for things like dates? Are you uncomfortable when others pay for you or offer to pay for you?
None of this money stuff is really important to me. I think it's important to, like, work it out with the other person. But my preference for the default is just splitting everything 50-50, you know, until farther notice. And then in terms of gender roles, like, I think it's best if you just work it out on an individual basis. At least that's worked for me, is just figuring out, like, who likes to do what, who hates doing what, you know, how do we balance it out and make sure things get done? And that would be opposed to what society would say is the normal roles, which, you know.
Question 10. Anything else you want to share about your experience with gender?
I've read stories of people who ponder their gender for hours and hours and hours until they find a label that fit them, and then describe it as seeing the sun for the first time. I've also read stories of people who just dressed and styled themselves certain ways, and then didn't realize that that was because of dysphoria until later on. So some people have very strong feelings of dysphoria, and it's important to respect that, but you don't need to have strong dysphoria to explore your gender. Anyone can explore their gender. Ultimately, I'm making this video in the hopes that there are other people out there like myself who don't feel included in the whole gender discovery thing. Specifically people who were assigned male and who don't experience strong, clear feelings of dysphoria. I want to tell those people that these things are open to you and that you are allowed to examine and explore your own personal feelings around your gender and your gender expression. And hopefully you can see that it's actually a really great way to understand yourself. And ultimately that's what this is about. It's about understanding yourself, understanding other people, helping other people understand you, and really just creating a self that you feel most comfortable living inside of. And I hope that I am able to help you do that. This video was inspired by a whole bunch of people, and I will put them all in the description, but I want to end on this quote from Ashley Wilde. Being your most authentic self is the clearest and most direct path to happiness. I couldn't agree more. Thanks for watching.